Episode 68. This week we cover That Which Survives. Not the greatest episode they ever made. Not by a long shot. The Enterprise goes to this planet and they're baffled because the planet is the size of Earth's moon, but it's got agriculture and an atmosphere. So they say, that's weird, let's check it out. So Kirk, McCoy, Sulu, and Lieutenant D'Amato, who's a geologist, they beam down to the planet. As they're transporting down, Lee Merriweather pops in and attacks the transporter chief. Takes them a long time to dematerialize, so they see it. They get to the planet. They're like, that was weird. And they're looking around. And all of a sudden an earthquake happens. Well, they're getting all shaken up. We see the Enterprise getting shaken up. Then the Enterprise discovers it's been flung thousands of light years away. They shouldn't have been able to get back to that planet for years and years, but yet apparently they're only 12 hours away. It was kind of strange. Spock gets really surly in this episode with the crew. He would talk down to the crew. He'd yell at them for not being precise on things, and they were pretty close to what the actual minute details were. He was just really harsh with the crew. On the planet, like, that same woman appears to D'Amato. She knows who he is and everything. He's trying to figure out how she knows him. And then she reaches out, touches him, and he dies. The rest of the crew show up. They're like, that's really strange. Well, they tried to bury him. The phaser doesn't cut through the rock. The rock's apparently too dense. So they just cover him with a bunch of stones. Somehow they made a tombstone. No idea how they did that, but they had a tombstone. It said Lieutenant D'Amato on it. On the Enterprise, Scotty's trying to work on his engines. He sends a crewman into the next room to do something. There's a woman in there. She knows who this crewman is. Knows what the machinery is. He tried to mislead her a little bit. She's like, no, I know exactly what it is. Then she reaches for him. He screams out. By the time Scotty and the other engineers get there, the guy's dead. So Scotty calls the bridge and tells Spock, who puts out a intruder alert. He's got an intruder alert going. He's not sure how this woman got aboard, but he figures it had something to do with the earthquake and being flung across the galaxy. Then on the planet, this woman shows up. She knows Sulu. So he's firing his phaser at her, trying to beg off. And that doesn't work, so he calls for Kirk and McCoy. She reaches for him. Sulu falls. She grazes his arm, which apparently injures him pretty seriously. For a minute, they get rid of Lee Merriweather. They discover Sulu's arm's been injured. They don't know what's going on. After a bunch of this, they figure out that this woman can only touch one of them at a time to injure them. The other two are safe. So they try to form a defense of each other whenever they find out who she's there for. Why she's compelled to tell them, they didn't know, but they figured she'd be compelled to tell them before she reached out and touched the one that she could kill at any given time. Then after much time, they discover this little sanctuary where they got this giant computer. And apparently Lee Merriweather was a holographic image of the people that had lived on that planet thousands of years earlier. Apparently they'd been traveling through space, got on the planet, contracted a disease, called for help which didn't come in time, and they set up a defense system with these holograms. How the computer could shoot the hologram thousands of light years away onto the Enterprise, they didn't explain. They didn't explain how that had that range at all, but it apparently did. And when there was 3 holograms going after Kirk, McCoy, and Sulu all at once, and they couldn't defend each other. That's when Spock showed up, started shooting things, and everything was fine. Everything was just fine, except for, of course, poor D'Amato. He was dead. And, of course, the engineer that was killed. They weren't so fun. Some interesting notes in this one. Yet another Batman Star Trek connection, as Lee Merriweather was the villainess, and she was Catwoman at one point. We've had the Riddler and a couple of Catwoman, Batgirl, all on Star Trek. We also had no Chekhov this episode, but in Mr. Sulu's initial report, he was starting to make a reference to Russia, and Kirk cut him off, and he said, if I went a history lesson on Russia, I would have brought Mr. Chekhov. So he threw in a Chekhov reference anyway. Also, the first instance of a Hindu officer on the Enterprise, the helmsman that was in Sulu's spot while he was down on the planet, clearly a Hindu woman, so they broke ground with that as well. Not talked about too much, but they did. It was also like the only instance of Spock acting this way towards the crew where he was particularly harsh and fighting towards them, but he definitely was. So, pretty much, that's episode 68.